Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this week before the July 4th holiday weekend. This is a special kind of unique webinar. We're doing it as an encore follow-up to our Real-Time Marketing Lab tour, which took place during the first 2 weeks of May, and we went to 6 cities. And three of our three presenters today are three of our main participating exhibitors from that event tour. And we want to present through a webinar today for those people that either couldn't make it to one of the cities where we were at or just had something come up and weren't able to attend. And these are all fantastic presentations, and I think you're going to learn quite a lot about website engagement, both from different interactive content from One World, and then different ways to utilize content with ContentMX, and then a really great new reputation management system for consumers and brands from Repio. So we're going to first start it off with One World Online, and we have with us today Brad Kayton, who is the Chief Marketing Officer for One World, I think calling from New Hampshire today, and Jackie Norgood, who is a content strategist for One World, calling in from Palo Alto. So Jackie, I'm going to make you the presenter so you can show your screen, and then Brad, I believe you're going to kick it off first for One World.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick introduction and hand it over to Jackie. Jackie's a professional educator. She's better at these things than I am. But One World, we're based out in Silicon Valley, and we've been around for a little over 4 years now. We've done pretty well. Our tools are used primarily by web publishers. We have over 850 clients and customers using our tools. We do have a freemium model, so people can get started for free, and then the premium levels, most people know the freemium, you play premium, 5–10% of folks are doing that. And with that, let me hand it over to Jackie, who can tell you about our company and more details on the product.
Okay, thanks, Brad. So we're privately held, and we're headquartered in San Jose, California, but we also have offices on the East Coast in Mexico, Japan, India, and Europe. We were founded in 2011, like Brad said, and now by 2015, we found a great way to monetize our product. We provide a unique combination of engagement applications, content, and analytics. So, and recently we just closed our A2 funding round for $2.5 million from some prominent Silicon Valley and global investors. So we've got 44 team members and in 6 countries. So when all is said and done, One World is about finding out what people really think. We believe that this type of knowledge is very powerful, and we want publishers and you to be a part of this. So what is our problem and solution? What are the problems and what are the solutions? So for brands, they need to define, refine, and position their products. For organizations, they need to learn what people's opinions are and influence them. And for web publishers, they have a need to engage, to learn about their audience, and to grow their audience. So what we provide for publishers, and I'm kind of focusing on publishers here because I think that most of our audience belongs in this category. Engagement. So your readers love a personal experience. They want information gathering to be a two-way street. And our tools provide a way for you to let your audience begin a dialogue. It tells your readers that you care about what they think, and they really like that. So with regard to traffic, our tools are proven to increase traffic on your site. And for data, you can use our are charts and statistics to glean a better understanding of the hopes, fears, needs, and opinions of your audience. We provide an easy way to increase revenue through advertising, and content is really easy to share if you use our tools, bringing more views to your site. Finally, in the end, our tools provide content that's interesting, relevant, and engaging to your readers. So, 7.1% of your visitors click on our widget. This is a typical, for a typical website. We have a 7.1% conversion rate. There's a 60% increase in returning readers, people who engage with the widget on our site compared to people who are not engaging are much more likely to return to your site. When our widgets are deployed, our websites realize a five times increase in the time spent on their site. And sites with the widget enjoy a 2 times increase in pages per visit. So we have 2 types of pollers. These are our tools here. And we have 2 types of pollers. One is the one index, and that lives on the usually on the right-hand sidebar of your site. And the other is the native poller, and that is part of an article, usually at the bottom of the article, or sometimes you can even use it as an article content. We have a debate widget, which can be embedded on your site, also similarly as an article, and it provides extremely lively and interesting content, real-time content too, as the debate unfolds throughout time. Your readers can like and click and choose their sides. We offer quizzes, which right now are all the rage. We have 2 types of quizzes. The fact quiz is kind of a trivia type quiz where there is a right answer and your reader can test their knowledge. And then we have something we call a character quiz, and that's so the reader can decide which city they should live in the U.S. or which Marvel character they should be. So finally, our Cadillac, or I guess Rolls-Royce, so to speak, is our survey tools. And these are some serious data collection tools. Our widget style survey can live right on your website as part of the content, sidebar or in the article. And our full page survey is a standalone landing page. So we support multiple languages at One World, and we're always welcoming the opportunity to add another language, and we do so as needed. So native polling increases engagement 100 times compared to comments. So we'll get 100 clicks on our polls compared to 1 comment on the bottom of the article. So your readers love a personalized experience. And one index allows each poll that appears on your widget to be linked to an article on your site. So this way, your audience members can use the poller to navigate from article to article, increasing the page views and time on the site. If you don't feel like you have time to create your own polls, we have an extensive library of current polls to choose from. Our native poller, the one that's embedded in the article, augments content on your articles. It can be used to navigate your readers to other similar articles or to new content altogether. The votes you capture can tell you a lot about your audience members. So across the board, One World engagement tools will provide a clear benefit to your publishing business. You can use advertising revenue use advertising to increase revenue. You can collect data and understanding of your audience through our smart profiles. You can realize traffic increases, a natural result from increased engagement. You can engage your audience, increasing both time spent on your site and the number of return visits to your site. And you can enjoy new avenues of social presence. Polls, quizzes, and debates are just plain fun to share. So OneWorld now has the ability to add an ad banner to the top of all of our widgets. And this way, not only does your poller provide content and navigation, your poller also generates ad revenue. Link your sponsorship to the topic of the poll or debate for an organic look or feel. We can also embed the ad on the inside of the poller. This way, your reader maybe clicks on 2 polls and the third one becomes an advertisement that they can either click on or they can X out, and then they move on to the next several polls in the system. So right now we're kind of, it's a new feature and we're just trying to figure out what best practices are for this type of ad. I'll give you some examples so you can see what this looks like a little bit later. So augment your user profile. You can increase insights into audience opinions and dynamic segmentations possible when you get to scale. You can retarget your audience, enhance and better target editorial content, and you can increase your revenue by maximizing advertisement revenue, better ad engagement, and better reports to advertisers. So we have deep data analytics describing the psychographic and behavioral data. Sentiment, opinion, and intent. We can determine the location and demographics of your reader. So our polls are incredibly easy to share on social networks. I just shared this yesterday. From the homepage of our partner Naples News, I voted on a poll and I shared my vote on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus and LinkedIn. And if you click on the post, it will take you right back to the article found in Naples News. So if one of my friends clicks on this post, it will just send them right back to the Naples News original article. In a case study performed on September 14th, we worked with Naples News to track the performance of our polls on their site, and the results were clear. After OneWorld's poller led to a clear increase in user engagement. Okay, so I'll just recap a little bit. Consider all the ways you can monetize your engage your audience, increasing both the time spent on your site and the number of return visits to your site. Realize traffic increases, a natural result from increased engagement. Enjoy new avenues for social presence. Polls, quizzes, and debates are just plain fun to share. Use advertising to increase revenue, and collect data and understanding of your audience through our smart profiles. I'd like to share with you a few sites that have incorporated our poller into their web pages, and here are the links. We've got sfweekly.com. I don't know if you can pull up a second window, but I'll try to go to it from my desktop here. And so poller should be in the sidebar here. And let's see, I'll try a different one. Sometimes they take a little bit of time to load, fully load, and my internet connection is not the office. So here's can you see this?
Yes, we can, Jackie.
Okay, great. So here is a poll from Huffington Post, and you can see that that lives inside the article. And if I vote, you can see that I can share my opinion here on any of the social networks. And
I think one thing I'll quickly add, Jackie, for the audience here, is that native polling that she just showed you has been very, very effective. We have gotten some sites where over 50% of the people have voted, have clicked, and that's unheard of. And that's not the normal, but normally it's anywhere from 15 to 40%. So it's a very good way to go about getting readers engaged. Very easy, right? You're reading, you're maybe a third of the way through the article or just finished, you give your opinion. It works really well.
okay, so anyway, that's I'm come to the end of our presentation. I hope you have some questions for us. We're definitely happy to answer those. And anyway, thank you. So here are a few of our clients. And thank you very much.
So Jackie, this is Bob. We don't have any questions or comments just yet. I guess one question for you is actually maybe we do. Give me 1 second here. Yeah. So let me. I'm gonna. Since we have a manageable audience, I'm going to unmute. Zalman, can you hear me? I unmuted you. Well, nope. I think he's unavailable. Jackie, and Brad, what are some of the more unique things you've seen done so far with the polls?
So some of our newest content are the quizzes. And they've been really exciting for publishers. We can get over 10,000 votes on just a single quiz widget.
Okay.
I'm getting quite a bit of feedback. I don't know what happened there.
Is that from me or your own feedback?
It's my own feedback.
Okay. No, I was just kind of curious if maybe have you seen the platform used in a way that you hadn't predicted before?
Well, the one thing I'll add, I think people are using it to gather opinions. Ooh, I'm getting an echo too. But what's been interesting is how people have been using it to change the world in different degrees. So there's a project in Mexico where they got over 1 million votes about the presidential scandal, and that actually influenced what was going on there.
It's possible that somebody has a phone open at the same time as the...
How people are using this beyond just getting more engagement from web users to actually using these tools to, have societal impact. So that's been interesting to see.
Jackie and Brad, I apologize. I was trying to switch to a headphone that is not working, so the feedback might be from me. Brad, any last thoughts you want to add before we move on to the next presenter?
The other thing I'll say is, again, we do have a freemium model, so I'd encourage anyone who had interest in what you heard today to email us afterwards. We'd love to get you set up and try it out.
Okay. Well, Brad and Jackie, thank you very, very much for joining us today, and wonderful to have you both.
Thank you so much, Bob.
So we're going to turn it over now to our second presenter today, which is Jeff Mesnik. Jeff is the CEO and founder of ContentMX, which is a content marketing agency and platform based out of Boston, Massachusetts. So, Jeff, it's great to have you back again, and I will hand it over to you. Jeff, and actually, Jeff, I'm sorry, I'm gonna. You're unmuted now. I apologize.
No worries, no worries. Well, thanks everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you here. And Bob, I appreciate the opportunity. And so what I really will talk about today is the power of content marketing and how you kind of think about it with social marketing and kind of pulling it all together for you. The idea being that we don't want to have a situation where people who are on the phone today are the social media experts and talking to their CEOs or talking to people that they're selling to services and saying vague things and not getting some real results, or purchasing vague information and not getting real results. So the goal that we have in our conversation today is to really break down what it is that's important about content marketing, social marketing, and even email marketing, and to really bring it back to maybe the old days. So here is a picture of my grandfather, where he used to have a gourmet food shop. Well, it was actually a candy store, but he called it a gourmet food shop on the Upper East Side in Manhattan. It was, I think it was basically like 94th and Lex, so if anyone knows that area, that's now a huge building, but he used to have a small candy store there. And when he ran his business, he always would say to me, he'd say things, well, first off, it is about content, but my content for him was that he wanted people to know what he was doing. So he had this great smell that would come out of his store from roasting nuts. And his content was the idea that he was socializing the smell out his door. So when people walked by, they'd say, oh, the smell of roasted nuts, I want to come in. And when they came in, they would see the candy displays and they would see all the great foods that he would import from around the world. And they would talk with him about it. So it was really important for him, once he socialized that content, which is the smell, to have answers. So when people asked questions, that they knew that he knew what he was talking about. He could talk about the origins of the food and understanding what it was. And by doing that, he really created this engagement, this connection with the customers. So as I've spent my past 20 years or 25 years or so in business, listening to all the changes that people talk about, I always think about history and how much has really changed. I mean, at the end of the day, as a business, we want to be focused on three primary pieces, the way my grandfather did, which is we want to make sure people are able to find us. So whether for him, that's having a fan that sent the wafting scent of the great roasted nuts out into the public, they feel like they can trust you and engage with you. To keep them thinking about you the next time they want to make a purchase. So the way we start to think about this, and the way my grandfather's thought about this, is what was his strategy? What was his story that he wanted to tell? His story was about foods from around the world. And he tried to stay consistent with that, whether it was the roasted nuts or whether it was the candy, where it came from, or the chocolates that he sold. So another example of this is a company like TiVo. TiVo wanted to define their strategy and define what they were talking about. And TiVo has done a very interesting thing. So where people may think and hear when I say the word TiVo, they may say, oh, is that company still around? And the answer is very much so. And the reason TiVo is still around is that they are powering different cable providers with their DVRs. But they're also considering a DVR and how people consume and engage with content now versus in the past. But the challenge that they had is they defined their strategy as, we want to talk about how you engage with content. We want to talk about how you watch TV, whether you're binge watching or how you search for television shows. We want that to be our strategy. But at first, all they were talking about was TV shows. So on their Facebook page, they were talking about all the different television shows that were on that day or that week. And this was just even last year. Versus their website, and sometimes their content and their articles that they wrote was all about how to engage with television now and how people engage with television now versus when they did in the past. So their messages didn't line up. So what we talked with them about is said, you know what, it's time for you to line up your messaging. It's time for you to make sure your social messaging and your blogs and your website and your emails all fall in line with what your strategy is today. Now, it sounds easy when I say it this way, but a lot of people get very stressed out about this because defining a strategy means to stay consistent, which also means that you need to have regular, reoccurring content that will drive audience engagement, that will provide people the storyline that you want to sell, and keep them coming back for more. And oftentimes I hear companies say to me, well, you know, Jeff, I'd love to do this, but you know what, it's just too complicated. I'd rather maybe not fail, so I'm not even going to try. So I love this little, Calvin and Hobbes cartoon where Calvin talks about how I find my life is a lot easier to lower everyone's expectations. And I'm telling you, when you lower those expectations and don't actually try and engage, then you're actually failing before you even start, right? So, and it's not just you that feels the stress and the pressure of trying to do this. Because in order to do this effectively, my grandfather was lucky. All he had to do was roast a bunch of nuts every morning and get a fan on and send it out. But we as businesses in today's world have to produce regular, reoccurring, interesting content. And 54% of people have producing engaging content, and 50% producing consistently. And they and streamline it. We talked about TiVo to make it easy to use across all the different mediums. So what's happening is they're missing out on the key benefit of what they're accomplishing. So going back to the TiVo example, they had a number of followers who were looking for content from them on TiVo, but their engagement level on Facebook, but their engagement levels were incredibly low because nobody really cared about what TiVo thought about a TV show. They've got tons of other sites to go to for that. What they care about is why TiVo is going to make my life better. So TiVo wasn't integrating their marketing message across all the digital platforms. So when you think about, okay, great, why should I spend the time and effort to integrate across the digital platforms? And you think back to the early slide that said, because my goals are to be found by people, create engagement, and be remembered. So if I think about all the digital platforms that are out there, email, websites, social sites, how do I really gauge what's valuable? How do I know where to focus? How do I know how to focus? And here are some great charts for you to think about. And if you're interested at the end of this presentation, send me a message, and I will be happy to email you these charts that you're going to see in a few minutes, or see now and then in one more minute. So the first thing to remember is, why do you tweet? When you think about Twitter is tons of messages going by you very quickly, and your impressions are sometimes limited. But if you're thinking about the fact that Twitter now has said we suck at search, so we're opening up our data to Google. So the amount of tweets that occur about your business, about who you are, retweets, and messages that you put out there, that's going to start to bolster the help you get found aspect. Facebook, while when you post on Facebook pages does not really do a lot for your business pages, does not do a lot for your getting found. When other people post content about you on Facebook, then that helps you get found. So if people are rebroadcasting, commenting, liking any of your articles, and that appears on their wall, that's your game winner, because that's going to help you be found. And we can go through, obviously, there's some great benefits from Pinterest and Google+. But those are the two things. And LinkedIn is very similar to Facebook. Even though there's a yellow here, I kind of disagree with it. LinkedIn is not great when you put up the Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, business pages, but they actually work pretty well when you have personal people like yourselves or your customers posting or replying or broadcasting information about you also. So for LinkedIn, there's going to be a lot of conversation going on in the future, and I'm happy to continue this conversation with anyone who's interested. But LinkedIn's real game winner for most people is if you post content on your own personal LinkedIn wall or get other people to do it. That's where I've found that you almost get double to triple the clicks into the articles versus posting anything on a group these days that's not always well attended, or your business pages. The other thing to keep in mind is that by developing a blog that matches what's going on with social and then adding it together into an email newsletter, an email newsletter is still has the highest level of engagement out of any different platform out there. So by combining these three pieces, you'll start to find a much higher level of being found and create much more engagement. So how do you get started? This is all great, Jeff. You've shared with me some interesting statistics, but now I'm just overwhelmed because you're telling me that I need to do this because otherwise my business is going to suffer. And you're telling me that if I don't even try, I'm going to fail, but I don't even know where to begin. So what we recommend is to try to start by understanding your story. My grandfather understood his story. It was about foods from around the world. That's why he called himself a fine food shop or gourmet food shop, as opposed to what he really was, which was a candy store, right? When I was 5 years old, sitting in his store, that's all I saw. But what is your story? So if you can answer these 8 questions that we've put in front of you here, walk through it. Who is your ideal audience? What are their pain points? What are the problems they're trying to solve? What do they read? What kind of blogs and what kind of articles, what interests them? What is the business proposition? I just saw a study recently that talked about how people, especially in B2B, respond best to articles that talk about a business case that they are involved in. And I often work with companies who are trying so hard to be smart and pithy with their content that they're writing too much about things that may be sort of interesting, but are just kind of interesting, but not related to the business problem that they solve. And while that has a place, we really want to try to focus our content strategies around understanding and engaging with the business processes or business problems that our customers are dealing with. So by answering these questions, we can really start to target those different pieces. And that even means that you can use humor. As you saw with my presentation, I start off with a Dilbert cartoon because it makes sense, it's relevant, and it makes a point. I started with I went to the Calvin and Hobbes cartoon. Once again, it helps make a point. And cartoons are engaging, they're fun, people enjoy looking at them, and they'll enjoy your brand that much more. So let's start with building out your story. And from these questions, by answering these questions, you can then pull it together into your content plan. Over 50% of the people out there are doing content marketing without a content plan, and they are struggling with what to write every week, or they're writing things that are not related to their business. So we're telling you, answer the questions here, start with this, turn those answers into a 3 or 4 page document that outlines what you're going to write about and where the sources are going to be from. And then every month or every week when you write, go back to that document and make sure you're referencing it. And then once you start to build that creative brief and you have the information, make sure you consider the convergence. So as I mentioned, an email newsletter that connects social to the website and all three pieces works so much better than when you're working in siloed organizations. When I speak often in front of people, I always make a joke because I always target the fact that the millennials are sitting there doing the social, and that's the 20-somethings, and then there's the 30 to 40-year-olds who are like myself, who are doing the email marketing, and the 40-year-olds who are doing SEO and so forth. And then you have some content folks in there, and they're all sitting in their own little world, and they're not talking to each other. But it's so important because that's so much wasted energy. And it's basically the idea here is, in this case, if you have 4 independent strategies, 1 + 1 + 1, that's going to equal 2. You bring them together, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 will equal 10, meaning that the benefit and the return will be tremendous. So in supporting this is another great chart here, which once again, if you email me afterwards, I'll be happy to share with you. This is kind of the chart for periodic table of SEO success, getting found. And you can see that you need content quality, frequent content. I see people who post articles on a frequent basis, their natural search rankings go higher. Their organic rankings, their organic clicks go higher. And it doesn't just have to be original content that you write. It could be curated content that you comment on to make it easy. Still part and parcel to that creative brief that we've talked about putting together, but use that creative brief to develop a regular stream of content. Use the social, because the likes, as you can see here, and the shares help to drive off the page SEO, driving traffic back to your site on a reoccurring regular level. And also, people trust content that's personal from somebody. Make sure it's branded. So Google came out, I think it was a year ago, the idea that they're going to be looking higher at content that comes from a person and basically give that person a ranking, as opposed to just the website or just the content itself. So how do we measure success? Well, we want to look at doing the convergence and making sure that people are finding us, that we are getting traffic to our stores, and that we're actually selling. So companies like Altico Advisors, who post content on a regular basis using social, email, and web, saw 40% of their new clients attributed to the integration of that content strategy. So it's a real big uplift when you can do stuff like that. And it's really important, as I mentioned, in the convergence, to try to get the value out of the different deliverables that will help drive the most opportunity. So that's a few kind of, those words don't really have much meaning unless you explain it this way. Meaning, email has a lot of clicks, a lot of activity, a lot of engagement. So why not use that engagement to try to trigger sharing? So we did a program with Fortinet where we wanted to create a game where other people's influence drove sales opportunities. So by clicking the share button, we ranked people. The leading sharers and the top 5 were going to get really just a baseball hat from Fortinet. And amazingly enough, people actively engaged with this program. They actively shared content from the newsletter. Not only that, we got phone calls from people saying, I shared with the wrong email address. Help, can you fix this? So we would have to go into the system and make sure that their share calculation worked out correctly for them. So using other people's influence and asking them to share is a great way to help get found, create that engagement, and then make sure that people are remembering who you are. And when this is done, companies like Kintronics double their leads, double their traffic. Another example is a company called Datamentional. They became number 2 on their organic search and over 10% open rates on their communications. They had high engagement, high clicks because they integrated. They had a website, an email, and you can see in the email, not only were they using the share button, but they drove people right in line with each email newsletter to engage with the content. to go back to Facebook, to like the content, to join in the conversation, because those pieces, that's how social becomes powerful for you. Just posting on social, sometimes a challenge, because it's not going to get you the ROI that you want, that you're hoping for. Getting other people to post for you and getting other people to like and engage in that content, that's the power, right? That's what we want to do. So when you're thinking about your budget, break it down into these three things. First, you want to make sure your budget includes ways to obtain content you need. It doesn't have to all come from just people in your own place. You might be sitting there and saying to yourself, oh my God, how am I going to sustain this content process that Jeff is talking about? I only have 4 people in my office, or I'm the only person who does this. There's actually some great crowdsourcing content providers out there that you can talk to. You can talk to other services that make it effective, cost-effective, and give you the results that you need. Make sure you spend the time to map your content to your destinations, and that you're providing, when you write the articles, have the original content. Don't just focus on one venue. Make sure the newsletters, the websites, and the social all connect together. And you might need specific tools that is in your budget as well to manage all the processes that you're going to do here. So that's coming to the end of my presentation. I want to thank you very much for the time. And Bob, again, thank you for the time. I really appreciate being able to talk with everybody here today. What we do from ContentMX is we actually help we maximize your marketing. We help accelerate your return on your investment from content marketing, because we have access to over 6,000 writers. We have the application that manages content to an email newsletter that's socially enabled. We do the gamification I showed you, and we integrate the content to all the different platforms. So we would love to talk with each and every one of you about how we can help provide you with the services that you need to be successful in content marketing. And to that effect, we're offering a free content assessment of your website and your social sites. So if you can write down this web link, we'd be happy to have a conversation with you. This is completely free, where during the conversation, I try to learn about what your audience is. I try to learn about what your marketing goals are. We then address those, and we give you a 3 to 5 page write-up of what we think you should be accomplishing. And then part of that, we will give you a presentation that says, here's how we would help you, and you can go from there. Obviously, you don't need to have us help you. You can just take that information and go on your own and do your good things. So thank you again, everybody. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Jeff, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So we got one person who sent me their email address and would really like a copy of the slides, so I will pass that along. Thank you, Monica. Jeff, I was waiting to see if there are any questions or comments. Can you comment a little bit more on what you mentioned earlier about I caught a little bit of it in terms of changes with Google ranking and impacting or the importance of individuals versus websites?
Yeah, so Google's goal is really to be driving people to other people who are influential and trusted people. So oftentimes you might have a number of authors on an article or in a company or in a publication. So Google has been working towards, and I think this is part of obviously their Google Plus, what they were trying to do with Google Plus before they really kind of got rid of it in many ways, but really trying to bring out the persona of who's the writer, who's the trusted person, so that when they go and provide content, they can use that as a measurement. Obviously, these are all things that Google's come out with and said, but nobody is 100% sure what's true and what's not true with them. But it's definitely true in the sense that when you're on LinkedIn, that people will engage more with what a person writes. So, one of the recommendations we always say is when your company writes a bunch of content, make sure every one of your salespeople puts it on their Facebook page, Twitter page, and LinkedIn page, because really people trust people. And same way in my grandfather's business, they trusted him as the person who was providing the information. And once he sold his business, unfortunately, that trust did not translate over. And the person who received, bought the business didn't have the information, and eventually that business did not survive.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you if you can comment a little bit about Facebook and content sharing. I know a lot of people are getting frustrated, and it seems like Facebook has taken a much more stronger stance that unless you're willing to pay to get your content promoted, you could probably forget about Facebook. I don't know if you can comment on that a little bit, or if that's too rash of a statement.
No, I agree. So look, this is what we're seeing out there is a little interesting, and in some degrees troubling. And you can see there's a bunch of articles starting to come out more and more about this. And it's really not just Facebook. It's pretty much everybody except for Twitter right now. LinkedIn is doing the same thing to some extent. And Google itself is even starting to do a little bit of that, where they're embedding certain content into the search when you find it. It's not affecting B2B firms yet, and probably won't really for a long time. But when it comes to places like Facebook and LinkedIn, that's where it really becomes important to use the different vehicles to trigger other people sharing. So right now, from what we can see is Facebook is making it very difficult. They're changing their algorithms up, and if you put something on a Facebook page, maybe you'll be lucky if you have 500 followers to get 5 viewers. But if you have individuals share your content, you're more likely to get their viewers and their people to engage with it. And that's the right way to do it. So other people sharing your content on LinkedIn and Facebook is really the best way for you to leverage those mediums.
So with that said, then how do businesses do that effectively? I mean, do you almost have to have a team organized beforehand in order to have them share your content when it goes out?
Well, so you have applications like ours where it can automatically post to those personal profiles on your behalf. So when you're ready to send, it happens. So we basically say, okay, we want to trigger the employees. So we have a lot of companies who put their employees' LinkedIn accounts right into the applications that they're using for management, or our application. Not to be too salesy on that, but I'll use that as an example. So we have Altico advisors. They have 10 salespeople, and all the content that gets written on the blog then gets shared at different dates and times by the salespeople automatically by the application. But also the email newsletter that goes out needs to continuously ask people and reward them in some way, whether it's a game or something, but a game is actually pretty cool. And reward other people, the consumers, the customers, the prospects, whoever it might be who's receiving your newsletter, and we ask them to share. So we were able to really trigger quite a great amount of sharing of Fortinet content by the salespeople at their channel partners, and that had a tremendous uplifting effect on their natural search ranking, because you had all these people with redirecting content back to the Fortinet website, and all these people saying that this is valuable, and Google saying, oh, look at that, it's got value. And I'll make one other point. It also becomes very, very important here is for each company to start considering that how important their own website and their own content on their site is, because you're going to want to drive more and more traffic to engaging in your site, more so than you're going to want them to go to Facebook or LinkedIn or in those senses these days, because that, with what they're doing, it makes it a very big question mark as to how successful it's going to be for you moving forward. Twitter is still open. I foresee Twitter staying open for the near future or far future, because they're really starting to see their benefits now, I think, especially now that they opened up their algorithms. So I think Twitter is a safe bet to be using and engaging on a regular basis and building your audience. But those other two, I'd question.
So Jeff, I have a couple comments and questions from Monica. First is kind of going back to what you were talking about a minute ago. She's noticed several businesses linking their blog content through LinkedIn. And so has LinkedIn become the new go-to for sharing business content, especially with the changes at Facebook?
Yes, absolutely. LinkedIn is really, they're trying to be the de facto content marketplace, right? So, but remember, you can do that. It has great benefits, but it also has, with those benefits comes some price, which is the fact that you're losing some control there. So you've got to make sure you're doing both.
Yes. A follow-up question she has is in terms of content, how important is it to vary the content on the various social platforms?
So I think I don't really see a need. I hear this a lot. I don't see a tremendous need besides shortening the messages to vary it too differently. I look at it as ways to just drive the traffic back to your website and to really drive audience. So you're basically just, whatever you think is best for, pulling them in. So yeah, so for Twitter, you got to make sure it's 140 characters, and for Facebook, you got up to 270. So you've got to manage those pieces. But beyond that, I wouldn't spend too much time. I have not seen companies who have spent a lot of time seeing a tremendously different effect from those companies who just repost or who just post the titles of an article with a brief synopsis on all different mediums, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess the last, maybe to close out things a little bit, but I mean, I am surprised myself in terms of how many people now are publishing on LinkedIn. But again, it seems like the same problem that we had with Facebook in the beginning as well, which was it's great to post content on Facebook and gain all this traction, but then at the end of the day, it's all Facebook's audience, and you're driving traffic away from your own website. You have an opinion or stance on that?
Yeah, well, with LinkedIn, the difference is LinkedIn is a business network, and they're attaching it to your business persona much more so, and they're allowing you to have a full article entry. So I do a lot of that myself. I like that because it helps build faith and trust in me when people are on LinkedIn. But I always connect the articles that I write to something going on my website. So I look at it as a kind of a closed loop medium that I'm trying to open up a little bit. So they've got an audience of mine. It's your contacts. You really own the audience there. So it's actually okay. And LinkedIn has not yet taken that approach that says, okay, we're going to limit what you can send to your own audience. So there are those benefits. But once again, it's the person then, much more so than the business, right? So you've got to focus on the person and make sure that matches your website.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, very much so. Thank you.
Okay.
Jeff, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you. And please have people register for the free assessment. I'd love to talk with more people out there. So if the woman who was just asking questions, if you really want to continue this conversation, I'd love to.
Yeah, and Jeff, I passed you her email address in the chat box.
Oh, okay, great.
So we're now going to we've got one more presentation today from Neil Cox of Repio, which is a great new content management system. Neil, are you all ready?
I'm ready. Just send me make the presentation change, and I'm ready.
Okay. I'm just made you the presenter.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. First of all, thanks a lot, Bob, for the invite to present today, and I really appreciate that. And good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are in America here today. And let me tell you a little bit about Repio, and I actually do a demo at the end. First of all, we are a image management platform that enables the users to filter, search, and organize and take control of their online information and create a personal image. So we allow people to bring all the information about you on the internet into one place and construct powerful profiles that can be discovered or actually can be shared depending on what happens. And I'll do some demos on that. And why we're doing this is it's very important to have an online image or reputation. And what we do is we eliminate name confusion and we leverage social media to respond to any contentious information and proactively promote one's own personal brand. We talked a lot, I heard a lot about Facebook and LinkedIn. Repio is actually built to complement LinkedIn, where LinkedIn does a good job with your business contacts and your Rolodex online and people giving you references that you're great at business development or strategy or something of that nature. What they don't really do is develop your online persona, your online internet identity, and that's what Repio does. So we are very much linked to LinkedIn, but we create a personal brand for an individual. So why is it important to a person to have a personal brand? And I'd like to talk about a little bit about how things have changed in America. Nobody is expecting today, I think, to retire from a corporation and get a gold watch and a nice retirement package that you're cared for life, unless you're maybe involved in government job. But what happens is that even though you may be working for a Fortune 50 or Fortune 500 company, you're kind of on your own. You're kind of on your own 401k. You're soon to be on your own health care with the Affordable Health Care Act. So even though you may be working for a very large company, you're still kind of your own little business entity within that company. And like it or not, you're going to be judged by your search presence. And people will Google your name, and you'll never even know they did it. And you have to understand, what do they see when they Google your name? Do they find, in my case, me, Neil Cox, or they find one of the other 25 on LinkedIn that has the same name that I do? And some of them are good and some of them are bad. Some of them actually were in the same city that I grew up in. So to find and to control your search presence is very important. And the other thing is that the internet, and especially social media, plays an ever-increasing role in the HR and process. And finally, experts predict that resumes will be a thing of the past in the very near term. Your internet identity, your internet image, or internet persona is going to be who you are, and that's what companies are going to use to determine whether they're going to hire you or not. So what are some of the key factors of an internet reputation? And obviously is you want to be found on the first or second page of any search result. So if somebody Googles your name, you want to be found on the first or second page. You want to be discovered. Most people, 80%, don't go beyond the second page. The next thing is to get the right picture and the whole picture, and make sure that all of the relevant data about you is discoverable on that first or second page of that search. And in my case, some of the most important things about me and links that had my name in them were on page 50 of a Google search. But with Repio, you're able to bring those all up to the front and make sure that all the relevant data is easily found and discoverable. Content and context is to make sure that your footprint includes the information that paints the right picture. And what we found is that if there's a link out there that has your name in it and is very good, people that support you, and with Repio, we let you comment on that particular link, on why your name was in it. Or in the case, we also allow you to bring links into your internet identity that don't contain your name. And you can say what you did to make that was associated with that link. You might have been the brains behind that new product that the corporation put the press release out on. You're able to bring that link into your internet image, and then you can comment on what you did with it, and others then can put the context around it saying that, yes, you did do that. So it becomes very believable. And then you have the whole promotion and social networking of your internet identity, and how you do it and how you use it depends on what the circumstance is or what you're trying to achieve. But there's kind of one of the things that we determined when we were building Repio, and this is one that that was a very interesting study by Microsoft with 2,500 HR professionals. And of those HR professionals, half of them were on the search side, and half of them were on the HR side of an enterprise. And of those, 80% admitted that they actually Googled a candidate's name during the HR process. What's more disturbing, of that 80%, 70% admitted they didn't hire somebody because of something they read about that person's name on the internet. And being that we live in a free country and anybody can say whatever they want about things, you know, it could have been true. They could have had the right name. Could have been true. Could have had the same name, not the same person. Article could have been false, but didn't matter. In today's world, if they saw something negative about that person's name, they didn't move forward with it. On the other hand, of that 80% that said they did a search of the name during the HR process, 85% admitted if they saw something positive about that name, then that kept the person into the game and influenced their hiring decision. But then there's something just as damaging on the internet as a bad link. So if there's a bad link about my name, at least with Repio, I can put it in a category and say it's not true and say it's not true. And I have a internet identity with over 700 links on my Repio profile. However, what we found out, and this was a study done, and it was on a 60-minute special, if they Google your name and they're considering you for a job and they Google your name and nothing comes up, you're not relevant. So not having an internet identity or persona is just as bad as having a bad link about your name. So people need to construct an internet identity where you're in high school trying to get into a college, or a college student trying to get into a first job. You need to have an internet identity that's discoverable, because that does make you relevant. And as we were building Repio, I had several on the HR side of an enterprise, especially on the hiring manager side, tell me, and I remember one quote very clearly. I asked this particular IT manager when he got his resumes from the HR department to fill a job, did he Google the candidates? And his answers were, yes, Neil, I do, and if I don't find anything about them, they're not worthy to work for me. So, you know, the people are expecting to find an individual's presence, and a very good presence, and something that makes somebody feel good that they hired that person. So why Repio? Well, first of all, our platform meets all the key factors of an internet identity. All of the stuff that I'm going to show you in the demo here very shortly is patented. The patents have been issued on this. We're well tested and viewed as the leader in the internet reputation space. You've probably heard of companies called Reputation.com and others that try to bury links, bad links about people, and they try to publish fake good links to bury the bad links. You know, the internet records everything and forgets nothing. The only way you can take a link down off the internet is to take somebody to court, and that costs a lot of money and a lot of time, and guess what? It comes right back. So the internet can destroy people very quickly. I mean, the latest one that it destroyed was the policeman that took a picture of himself with a Confederate pants underwear. You know, it went viral on the internet, and he's fired within hours. So the internet is so powerful. It's so powerful on a person's reputation or identity. And as I was building, or we were building Repio, the amount of people we talked to, especially on the HR side, which they know Googling a candidate is kind of violation of labor statute unless they actually save what they saw that made that decision and saved it in a file for a year. So if you're looking online, you saw an article about me, it wasn't positive, and they said, I don't want to move forward with that guy. Legally, by labor statute, they should take a copy of that link, store it for a year, you know, so if I came back and asked why I wasn't hired, they could produce that document. Nobody does that. But what the senior people will tell you, general counsels tell them not to do it, but they say, Neil, we do it for self-preservation. If we don't do it, we hire somebody, and that person has something bad about them on the internet, our clients or customers tell us immediately we made a bad hire. So they do it. It's kind of the unwritten rule, and it's something that social media has changed the HR process. The next point is that there are a lot of advantages and features about being on a common platform with others. Just like Facebook is a common platform and LinkedIn is a common platform, Repio is a common platform, which takes a lot of advantages by people having an online profile on a platform. People can go out and build their own bios and put up their own websites about themselves and boost themselves up, but it really doesn't work very well because you become an isolated island. You need to be part of a platform where you can take the advantages of the software and the capability on a common platform. And finally, Repio just simply works. So what I'm going to do is to do a demo, and I'm going to open up a Google, and I'm going to start by just Googling a website. I'm going to start by Googling a Ralph Lauren, and I'm going to go in, and you'll notice when I Googled Ralph Lauren, I got almost 65 million results. I'm going to narrow that down because I was on Michigan Avenue and I saw something very interesting. So here's the Michigan Avenue. Now, I told you that one of the things that Repio did was to make you relevant. So as you'll notice on this particular page, I have 124,000 results for Ralph Lauren Michigan Avenue. And if I start down on that first page of those results, you'll notice that a Repio comes up for this girl called Courtney Cox. So I'm going to open up her internet identity because some reason she is actually associated with that link. When I went out and searched Ralph Lauren, she has a link in her internet identity. This is her Repio, and she actually has the link concerning that she did an internship at Ralph Lauren on Michigan Avenue. So what this does, these are her words that she has typed. She can show comments from others. I can click on this and you can see the comments from others about what she did there. And if I click on this link, what it'll do, it'll open up the link that she brought into her internet identity. And what that link did, this is a link from back in 2006. It actually showed the project she worked on, which was to make the Windows state-of-the-art touch tone for Christmas, a touch screen type window for a Christmas experience. So she didn't invent this this idea, but she worked on the team that did. And what it shows on her internet reputation is a skill set that she would have never gotten unless she went to that store where people had some out-of-the-box thinking on how to maximize the traffic on Michigan Avenue associated with that. So let me kind of go back one more, and I'm going to Google me. And just to give you an example of mine, here I am. By the way, Repio, we're headquartered in Newport Beach, California. I'm actually calling you from Chicago today. But this is my particular Repio. And you'll notice that I have 752 links associated with my online identity. And I've created categories where all these links are stored. So by one click, one search on Google, my name pops right to the top of the page, and everything about me on the internet, links that contain my names and links that don't even contain my name, but I'm responsible in some way, are all organized and categorized in a particular fashion. So I create these categories and I put these links in. So if I want to talk about, and here's kind of one of the things that makes an online identity important to have. Recently, you might have heard about the Google Smart Card. and there's a lot of people talking about the Google car and all the stuff it does and everything. And you'll notice the title of this link that I have in my visionary speeches section, and it talks about, essentially it says the car knows blah, 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 blah. I'm going to open up that link. So this is the link talking about what Google is blowing the horn about now. And my name is here as a Director of Engineering for Ameritech Mobile Communications. That's why I came to Chicago, was to build the first cellular system. And you'll notice the date of this article is in 1989. So what Google is patting themselves on the back about now, about how great they are and how much they have, you know, I was talking about it in 1989, and I can actually substantiate that by an article that I didn't even write, an article written that I was interviewed about. So it allows you, and that article, by the way, with Repio, we allow you also to save an article for if it's something for your legacy. So if there was something, like example, like on Bob on the Wall Street Journal that was very, very good for him and his business, an article about him in the Wall Street Journal, he doesn't know when the Wall Street Journal was going to take that down off of their server. So we would allow, he would then use his Repio to store that article in a PDF portion in case it ever came offline. Then he replaces it by the PDF version like nothing ever happened. So the article still appears like it's still online, even though it might not be online anymore. So if what you do is to create categories, and I said Repio allows you to bring in links that don't even contain your name. Like on this one, it's Centertel Poland. If I click on this, this was actually built pre-internet days. It was the first cellular system in Poland. And it's now part of the Orange Network, one of the largest corporations in the world. But this, when we built this back in 1991, and you can see what is established, it was one of the deals that my team worked on. And we went over and won that opportunity, and we built it, and we started with a piece of paper, and it's now one of the largest corporations in the world. So that's kind of a highlight on Repio. We allow people to search, so and they can search on top of my own identity. So if you're somebody that has a lot of links, I want to say, is this guy the guy that was at Security Link? It'll search my own identity, and it will search my identity to find out if I have any links that contain the word security link in them. And then it shows that the date I add them to my reputation, what the search engine was, where it was on like rank on 65 on Yahoo on that back on that day, is shows you how this thing works. Now, we have a couple of things. I know when Jeff was talking, I'm going to log into my account and go into the portal that does the work, that helps build these things. And we do have, and this is the portal that you kind of build your internet identity on, but you can email a link to whomever you want, and you can customize why you're sending it. We're also API to LinkedIn, so I can share it with all of my LinkedIn comments and ask for comments and things like that. So we're API to LinkedIn. And so you can do whatever you want to share it and promote and ask for comments. If you did a particular project or something like that and you brought it in and you say, hey, I did that, would you support what I said? So, and we also allow if somebody, if you send it to somebody, we also allow you to see where they were, whether they looked at you, the latitude and longitude, so you can see where they're looking at you from and things of that nature. So, you know, I got somebody from London looking at me. So when it's an ability to see when you send your identity out, did somebody look at it? If you're applying for a job, if you send it for along with the application, because everything's done online, you can actually see if they opened it or not, and actually see where their eyes went on the page. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Bob. It's I think I've used my 20 minutes here and to get some Q&A about what we do or any questions you might have. One last thing, there is a very powerful button that we actually search on links. So if I wanted to search on a link, if I was reading an article today in the Wall Street Journal, if I pasted that link in here, and I will look and it will go through the database and find out who actually claimed that link, who did the work. So if Abbott Labs put out a new product today and did a press release, I could put that link that they announced, that press release, and the PhD guys that invented that new drug, I could find them immediately. So we had a lot of HR professionals that use LinkedIn today help us develop this site, and their comments were, if you had the database LinkedIn had, we would use this really over LinkedIn in a heartbeat. It gives us much quicker search and gets us down to the skill set of the individual. Okay, Bob, back to you. Any questions?
Neil, thanks very much. As we wait and see if any questions, comments come in, I know, I think recently you've been getting a lot more inquiries about companies using Repio as opposed to just individuals. Can you talk more to that?
Yeah, Repio can be used either as for an individual or can be used as a company. So a company, what you would do is you would take links that maybe are good or bad, and just like I'm going to go back and I'll go to my directory and get ours, my own again, just to kind of show you. I should have put in there instead of this. I should go first name. Sorry. I'm getting it through our directory right now, so I'll show you this, Bob. It's exactly right. So what companies do is they're able to show the picture of their company, talk about what their company does, and they can create categories, like innovations or things like that. But they can also have one called not true articles, where you can place an article. If somebody wrote something about you and put it on, one of the other sites and said that this was bad or this company was bad or that was bad, you can bring that article in and then you can retort it. So I actually do that myself. Here's an article from the Chicago Tribune, and I retort the article. I can open up and read the article, and if you can open up and read it, it's an article about when I was on the board of U.S. speed skating, and it was written back in 2013, and it's not true because the reporter didn't do the right thing. So companies can use the same tool and actually use it as a tool that shows good articles and bad articles, and they can retort anything. And just like when you get around that article, just like with my daughter, when you get around that word on the search, then the Repio will pop up, and then the people will understand that, hey, I can listen to what the company is saying about that link. So it's something that adds it gives you the ability to retort anything said about you, good or bad, and it doesn't try to bury the link like some other companies try, because that just doesn't work. This brings it up front, and you just address it, and that's what happens.
Okay. And what's next for Repio during the rest of 2015?
Well, what we're doing, we're starting to roll out. There's a lot of programs. In fact, I met yesterday with a group that was really wants to use the tool exclusively for various 9 to 12 grade students, where they will, because at that point in time, people don't have a lot of information about them on the internet. They haven't, maybe they've done some charitable work for this, in the high school, and they've done a few things like that, and they bring those links in. But what they want to do now is what universities are looking for, is to actually bring in. So like, let's just say the Supreme Court rulings of last week. They could bring a link in about those Supreme. If you have a desire to go into political science at a particular university, let's just say Georgetown, and you want to go into political science to get a degree in something to do political science or whatever, you could, as a high school student, comment on those links and comment on what some of the opinions were by the judges and write those, and then have that part of your internet identity and send that. So it actually gets you a way to actually get published. So we have lots of different groups looking at how to use this. We have a lot of resume companies know that their business is dead. Those that go out and build resumes for individuals and charge $300 to $500. They had moved on to building LinkedIn's for those people. Now they're moving on and building Repio profiles for those same individuals and charging a fee, quite a substantial fee to do it. Because being relevant is just as important as having a bad link. So you need to be relevant. You need to control your name when somebody searches your name on the internet. That's the most important thing. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, Bob, is we're looking at various disciplines and how we're going to market this.
Well, Neil, sounds like lots happening. Thanks again for joining us today. Greatly appreciate it.
For the invite, Bob.
So that's going to conclude our webinar today. 3 presentations. Actually, we've stayed pretty well on time, about 30 minutes on average each. And if anyone has any questions or follow-up, feel free to email. And we will be posting the webinar on the website later on. Haven't decided yet whether we'll break up the presentations or post it as one, but keep an eye out for that. And we look forward to, we have a webinar coming up tomorrow. You might want to join us for managing your Facebook content marketing. You can find that on our website and in the email that you may have received for this one. So with that, we're going to leave it, and we look forward to having you again. Thanks for joining us.